We're always driving to dance lessons. So we signed up for Know Your Drive. We save money and get closer to her dancing dreams.
The daring young man on the flying trapeze.
Or maybe her singing dreams. Sign up for Know Your Drive and save up to 20%. American Family Insurance. Insure carefully, dream fearlessly.
Products not available in every state. Discount terms apply. Visit amfam.com/knowyourdrive for details. American Family Mutual Insurance Company, SI, and its operating company, 6000 American Parkway, Madison, Wisconsin.
This morning, Jen woke up, made 3 breakfasts, did 2 loads of laundry, and 1 conference call. But she also saved $25 because Jen uses a new innovation from Huntington called Money Scout. It analyzes Jen's checking account to find money that's not being used and moves it to her savings automatically. Learn more and enroll at huntington.com/moneyscout. Huntington. Welcome. Message and data rates may apply to text alerts. Money Scout is subject to eligibility, terms and conditions, and other account agreements. Member FDIC.
The following is a HoopBall presentation.
Good morning. Good morning, Fantasy Tragics. Good morning, DFS Degenerates. Welcome back to another installment of your premier NBA DFS podcast. You're tuned into HoopBall's DFS Today, or NBA DFS Today. I'm your host, Brenton Eckersley, coming to you from beautiful South Australia, where it's currently Friday afternoon. So hello to you guys from the future. If you're listening over there in the States, we are here to bring you a big 10-game NBA slate for Friday, January the 8th. And as per usual, on our Friday fixture, we welcome in from the other side of the globe, live from New York City, my good buddy, my fantasy affiliate, it's David Mankoff. How are you doing over there, Dave? We haven't been on a Friday game card for a couple of weeks because of New Year's Eve. How was your New Year, and how has your DFS been going to start 2021?
Yeah, happy New Year to you as well. It's certainly been interesting one. Going into the new year was a little bit of a struggle, and then got on a bit of a heater as the year turned 2021. So hopefully, nice. as this year gets better, we can also all start feeling that effects in the DFS side as well.
Yeah, same for me, man. It was a very slow start, but had a couple of decent lineups come in the last few days. I'm looking not too bad today, but as we were just discussing off air, I have too much Brooklyn and too much Philly in the wrong places. So, yeah, we'll just see how that shakes out. As I said, just going past halftime. So, yeah, all right, 10-game slate. But before we jump in here, just have to quickly mention one of our most excellent sponsors. We love these guys here at HoopBall and DFS Today, and we thoroughly appreciate the support of MyBookie. You guys can go and find these gambling gargantuans on the interwebs at mybookie.ag. So gambling pundits out there think about the same kind of questions all the time. Am I taking the over or the under? LeBron or AD? And is there an upset coming here? But do you ask yourself one of the most important questions you can ask yourself before you lay down your hard-earned dollars, and that is where? Where am I going to place those bets? Let me tell you, folks, that's just as important as who you are betting on. And that's why I tell people to bet with mybookie.ag. MyBookie's rep is rock solid, and they've got the best odds, contests, and promotions in the business. They're the only place you should be trusting to handle your NBA-related bets or any of your sports bets. The one sportsbook guaranteed to give you the best lines for the National Championship College football game on January 11th, just coming up, and on every NFL playoff game as well. So here at HoopBall, we don't just hand out our tips without somebody putting that work in. You have to earn it, and you've got to be the best at what you do. For us here at HoopBall, and MyBookie simply is the best sports book out there, period. It's simple. Sign up, enter promo code HoopBall, HOOPBALL, and get your deposit matched halfway up to $1,000. So head over to MyBookie if you want to add a little excitement to the sports you love and the games you bet on. Bet with the best. Bet with MyBookie. All right, Dave, we've got a massive 10 games to get through here, so let's get this bad boy going. First game up here on the slate is Phoenix Suns versus Detroit Pistons at 7 p.m. At the moment, the over-under is 218.5, and Phoenix are favoured by 5 points. So if we jump into the ins and outs and questionables, at this point, Detroit have questionable Derrick Rose, Josh Jackson, and out, unfortunately, is Killian Hayes. For Phoenix, no injury report at this time, or nobody listed that I was able to find. So let's dive in, Dave. Who, if any, do you like here for the Phoenix backcourt?
Yeah, no, it's certainly going to be interesting in the Phoenix backcourt. I mean, it's been an interesting season for the Phoenix Suns. They're playing surprising defense, and on the offensive side, that backcourt has been very much hit or miss from a DFS perspective. So for me, I'm looking at Devin Booker is finally getting to that price tag where he's certainly palpable at 8,200, coming off a game where he had 35 points. Fantasy points, 24.6 assists. It's a low-scoring game, so I think he's going to be very low-owned and a great opportunity to exceed that price tag. He's probably my favorite play between him and Chris Paul in the backcourt. And that's pretty much it from the backcourt and the Suns. What about you?
Yeah, I don't mind that on Devin Booker. A pretty nice pivot play away from some other bigger names out there on this card. He may, 8K, he hasn't kind of been doing that kind of salary for me lately, but you can't not play Booker on any night. I may be keeping my shares a little low there just due to the game total, but I don't mind the pivot play. Chris Paul, 7,100, that's too cheap for Chris Paul, but look, I just think he may be more of a solid cash play here. The floor is very, very stable. If he pushes into 35 or 36 minutes range, he could literally do anything against the Pistons. So not a bad play there. What about on the wings and in the front court for you, Dave?
Yeah, for me and the wings, I mean, there's always going to be some love for Mikal Bridges. Certainly a guy that, has proven that he can put up some decent fantasy lines, pretty rock-steady floor, about 20, 25 fantasy points. And that salary certainly going to be in play. And again, another guy that's going to be fairly low-owned, so I'm going to have some shares of Mikal Bridges. And then as far as the front court, I'm not going to have too many shares of DeAndre Ayton. He's coming off one of his better rebounding efforts in the last one where he put up 16 rebounds, but only put up 33 fantasy points. He's just not doing enough in the blocks and steals department for a big man. So I'm going to probably stay away from DeAndre Ayton in a bunch of my lineups. How about on your side?
Yeah, interesting, because I've actually noted DeAndre down here as a fairly solid play for me, and that's just, differing opinions between two different DFS dudes. So I actually like this spot for Ayton. Detroit just do not defend that center position very well. I just think Ayton's going to eat Mason Plumlee with a side of greens here. So I like this play. I don't mind the salary. Hopefully he can have one of his higher upside games for me. And the only other guy I'll throw in here for the Suns is Campaign as a very punt value GPP play. He's getting the minutes. If we ever hear that Chris Paul is out, then you just lock and load Campaign at 3,900. That's a pretty nice little dart throw play. That's probably it for me on the Suns. Let's move over to the Pistons. I'm not overly interested in too many guys here, mate. How about yourself?
Yeah, we talk about the Pistons. They're just riddled with injuries and guys injured and just getting a bunch of guys in and out of the lineups and rotations. So it's really hard to trust anyone on the Pistons side. The only guy that has been fairly consistent, surprisingly, this season has been Jeremy Grant at 7,100. He's going to be an absolutely more of a tournament play, just given how many players are going to be available on the slate. But he's been putting up absolutely impressive fantasy numbers. His last game, he put up a nice double-double with close to 48 fantasy points. His price tag hasn't really jumped much throughout the season, so he's certainly going to be a guy that could be a potential pivot play. But there's no one else I'm really looking at. Delon Wright is going to get an opportunity to start. And he's priced well at 4,300. But again, I don't trust anyone else on the Pistons side. How about you?
I'm pretty much thinking the same way you are. Jeremy Grant, finally starting to hit his straps. I'm not overly keen on the matchup against the Suns because we do have Mikal Bridges on the other side of the ball who's going to throw some time at Jeremy here. So it is a little bit of a worry, but you just can't completely fade Jeremy. He's, obviously the focal point of this team. And look, I may just like some other guys in forward positions at around this price tag. Dillon Wright, no, I'm not going to play him unless I see something from him. He's just had a terrible start to the season, and even starting, I may not go there. Derrick Rose, if he suits up, 5,800 just takes all the value out of it. Look, if we find out he's starting for some reason, then sure, I might have more shares of Rose, but otherwise I'll pass. Blake Griffin is a pass for me. He's had one game over 30 DK points in 5 games, so he needed 44 minutes to get to that as well. So, look, I'd rather probably just have a little sneaky punt on Sadiq Bey. 5K on DraftKings. He may be pushing some higher minutes as we may be seeing the decline of Blake Griffin this season. And I don't want anything to do with Mason Plumlee, who's been terrible anyway, and it's a tough matchup. So I know I ripped through a lot of guys there, mate, but what about the front court here? You're pretty much passing on everybody but Jeremy Grant?
Yeah, I would say outside of Jeremy Grant, there's no one that really interests me on the Detroit side. I mean, Plumlee could be a fine option, but again, going against the stingy Suns defense, he's again going to be absolutely more of a punt play. But I'm not going to have any real consideration any of their front court guys for sure.
Yeah, cool. Okay, we can move across to the next one. This is Washington Wizards versus Boston Celtics. This is 7:30 p.m. Game total and spread. We are looking at 234.5 game total, and Boston favoured by 5.5 points, not surprisingly. If we just look at the questionables and outs, questionable Westbrook is questionable. Now, this is due to the back-to-back with the Saturday game, so we really, really need to know which game he is playing. If he's playing the Friday, great. We can probably lock him in. But yeah, if he's not playing this, then the other options open up for us. On the Boston side of the ball, we've got a stack of questionables here, and it seems to be contact tracing related. So Jeff Teague is questionable. That is actually an injury, though, I believe. Tristan Thompson, Robert Williams, Grant Williams, Carson Edwards, Javonte Green, Romeo Langford. So, yeah, Teague dealing with an ankle injury, and the rest look like they're in COVID protocol, so we need to watch this really closely. And out for Boston, of course, Kemba Walker. So what do you think here, Dave? Vegas has this staying close. I'm not too sure about that. Do you think the Wizards keep it close, and who do you like on the Wizards side of the ball?
Yeah, it's hard. Vegas has really been an interesting one because they absolutely had the Sixers as a nice favorite tonight against Brooklyn Nets. So it's hard to really trust. Yeah, it's really hard to trust the Vegas lines these days. So I actually like the Celtics to absolutely blow out the Wizards, especially with Westbrook dealing with a potential injury. And he's coming into a game with a back-to-back opportunity against the Heat on Saturday. So I'm not necessarily going to be too keen on him playing. And with him out on the Wizards side, you can pretty much lock and load Bradley Beal, no matter what the spread is, just because he's coming off an absolutely historic type of game where he put up almost 80 points and 60 real-life points. His price tag jumped all the way to 9,700. But, I mean, at that price tag, he's going to be relied upon a heavy amount on the Wizards side. So I like him. He's probably my favorite play of this entire game with the current situation dealing with the Westbrook injury. And then outside of him, I'll probably have a little bit of interest if the game stays relatively close in Davis Bertans at 4,900. He's a guy that has been getting more and more minutes and getting acclimated. He actually even started the second half of the last game for the Wizards. And he put up 28 fantasy points in that one. He's getting more and more comfortable. I like him as a great GPP play. I think he's got a ton of upside if his shot starts falling. And that's pretty much it. I don't think I'm going to have a lot of love for Thomas Bryant down low. I know he's been sensational in recent games, but I'm going to probably stay away from him. So those are probably my two main plays on the Washington side. What about you?
Yeah, I don't mind a look at Thomas Bryant at 7K. It's probably too cheap for a guy with his kind of fantasy upside. And the one place you can target Boston is at centre. So, look, I'm not going to have huge amounts of Thomas Bryant in lineups, but, might throw him in a few and just hope he gets to that 40 DK point mark. He's been hitting half the time and not the 20 to 29 DK point output he's been giving us the rest of the time. And the other thing is if Westbrook does sit here, then Thomas Bryant will usually eat a few more rebounds because the thief isn't coming over his shoulder and pinching them from him. Can't ever rule out Westbrook or Beal. Yes, absolutely. I tend to agree. I think the 10K price tag is starting to get pretty high for Beal, but look, if Westbrook sits, if Westbrook plays, I don't really care. Beal is just monstering teams, and look, it's a tough matchup. I may be under-owned on Beal just a little bit compared to some other people, but they're both still definitely very good plays. And yeah, look, if we know that Westbrook's out, Raul Neto is the instant plug and play. It's tough against the Celtics, but at 3,900, that's a pretty tasty price. And I like your Bertans call, Dave. Yep, 4,900. That is value. I'll probably play some shares of Beal, some shares of Bryant, and yeah, the Raul Neto, the GPP value play of Westbrook sits. So on the other side of the ball, it looks like the Boston Celtics may be losing quite a few secondary guys here and potentially even a couple of starters. So lots of front court guys under questionable tags. Dave, do you see value opening up here? Are you just sticking with the three bigger starters?
Yeah, it's definitely tough on the Boston side to look at where the value is. I think with Smart potentially playing, Peyton Pritchard was a very juicy play and a great call when Smart was out. At 4,500, there's still some meat on the bone, I think, at that price tag. And as a potential lower price guard that you can kind of build around potentially. But so I'll have a little bit of interest in Peyton Pritchard. And then, of course, Jaylen Brown, as rock steady as they come this season, has really turned the corner from DFS perspective. I mean, he's coming off 54-point game where he shot 35% from the field. And he's been absolutely lighting it up and shooting a high percentage of the season. So I fully expect him to bounce back and go and perform well and get to that price tag. He should have no problem succeeding that price tag. So he's probably my favorite play on the Boston side. And then, of course, you can always have some shares, and I probably will, of Jason Tatum in 9,200. That price tag is creeping up to a level that it hasn't been much this season. So he's going to be a little bit of a question mark from as far as a ceiling type of performance. But I like Tatum, especially against the Wizards' porous defense. He should be able to go off as well. So those are probably my three main looks on the Boston side. How about you, Brenton?
Yeah, I think you smashed it. Tatum and Brown, it's always the same question when it comes to these guys when they're both healthy and in playing full minutes. It's which one am I going to play? Look, you just can't fade these guys any night or just overlook them because their price tags are too high because, both of them have serious upside. Tatum's in play for sure at 9,200 for me. He has 60-point DK upside, which we've seen in a couple of outings recently. So, they were against Detroit, who are actually quite good defensively, and the Raptors, who are very good defensively. So anything could happen against the Wizards. Look, there's probably a few guys in the forward position coming up that I like a little more than Tatum. I think Jaylen Brown with the salary discount at $8,700, $500 salary saving. He also has 55 DK point upside, and I think he's probably the better play here if I was forced to choose between the two. Peyton Pritchard. What price is Peyton at tonight, Dave? I don't have it here in front of me. Sorry.
He's at 4,500. I saw.
Yeah. So if Teague's out, if Smart's out, he becomes a bit of a plug and play. But 4,500 is starting to get a little high. He hasn't quite returned that kind of value for us regularly. No one else from the Celtics, mate. I think we can just move on.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. Next game up: Charlotte Hornets versus New Orleans Pelicans. This game is at 7:30. Questionable for Charlotte, Nick Richards. And Nick Richards, I don't know I've ever read that name out before. Out Cody Zeller for Charlotte. On the Pels side of the ball, questionable JJ Redick, Nicole O'Malley, and Sindarius Thornwell. And out, we have nobody at this point. Vegas, where are we? New Orleans. This is a slow game. 217.5 game total, and New Orleans favoured by 9 points. I'd actually put that probably closer. But it is my Pels, so let's back him in. Back him in for 9 point spread. That's fine by me. Okay. Dave, should be a nice little game target. I mean, this is a fairly slow game, but there are places that we can attack both of these teams offensively. So who do you think you'll be playing on the Hornets side of the ball?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me just jump in and give you some context on Nick Richards quickly. He was a second-round pick from Kentucky. So he's a rookie that, I don't think he got a lot of opportunity this season, but a name to look out for future dynasty league potential.
Cool, man. Bring that college knowledge. I love it.
And then as far as the Hornets lineup, there's definitely some juicy plays given how low the line is, which I'm shocked at in terms of the spread total. Sorry. Apologies. On the Hornets side, I really like Gordon Hayward. I mean, he's been rock steady in the past few games. He's coming off an absolute gem of a game where he put up an actual career high 44 points and 61 fantasy points. His price jump did go up by $1,000 up to $8,400, but I think he's in this kind of a matchup. I think he can absolutely smash. Given if the game stays relatively close, I like him a lot. Especially at that price tag. Another guy on the Hornets side that keeps getting his price climbing. Speaking of another rookie, LaMelo Ball, who's been just absolutely balling as far as, full pun intended in that one. But he's been absolutely incredible. And he's been a real revelation and shown a lot of maturity this season. Each game he seems to get better and better. So he's been absolutely on a tear. Pretty soon he's going to be starting, so that price tag is going to continue to climb, in my opinion. At 6,500, there's still some meat on the bone left. With a floor of around 30 fantasy points, he can get up to 40 fantasy points, no problem. At which point, I like him a lot. So those are probably my two favorite plays in the backcourt. And then in the front court, I don't have too much interest, just given the price jumps for PJ Washington, 5,700. Not entirely sold on his ability to really hit that price tag in this type of game. Bismack Biyombo, 4,900. Again, getting to that level of not as comfortability as I like to see with that kind of level of play from him. So that's pretty much it for me on the Hornets side. How about you?
Yeah, cool, man. Gordon Hayward at 8,400. Yeah, that is a big price increase, but I think, look, I don't know. I may just leave Gordon to the side here a little bit for my lineups and just let other people chase that flyer. Look, he's got a good fantasy matchup here. There's no doubt about it. But 8,400, that's starting to get a little tough to swallow. He hasn't quite been getting there in terms of floor, so I would be worried a little bit about Hayward there. LaMelo Ball. This kid just needs to start. They need to put him in the starting lineup, and as soon as they do that, he is going to be out here balling, as per your pun. And 6,500 may be as cheap as we're going to get him for some time if he does get that starting spot. So love LaMelo Ball in this. I will just say that PJ Washington, since he's been coming off this bench, I actually like him a lot more, and it's kind of that Karis LeVert type of situation where if he's playing in the starters spots, he's not getting as much usage, but throw him into the bench role and he gets a little bit more usage his way, and he doesn't have to go up against some of the bigger names in the front court opposition. So I don't mind him here at 5,700. And Miles Bridges, Bismack Biyombo, they're just a pass for me. We'll move over to the Pels side of the ball unless you have anyone else on the Hornets. I think we covered everyone.
Let's do it.
Do it. Okay, I'll kick this one off, mate. My New Orleans Pelicans, they keep losing close games. It's doing my head in, but hopefully we get them driving through the Hornets here pretty easily. Starting with Lonzo, I can't see myself playing a lot of Lonzo. 6,400 is just not a lot of value in that play. Bledsoe at 6K is slightly cheaper. Look, he may have a little more upside than Lonzo here. In fact, Hornets give up a few fantasy points against opposing shooting guards. So, look, he could have a big game here. I'm just not 100% sold on Bledsoe yet. He seems to be a little bit up and down, and there's probably better options coming up at this price tag. I'll throw in another backcourt guy here. Josh Hart is going to be a nice value play if JJ Redick can't play. 4,800, he's a rebounding machine as a guard, and if he gets minutes pushing 30, he could smash that value against the Hornets. Who do you have here in the backcourt for the Pels?
Yeah, you touched on a little bit. I'm with you 100%. I don't have a lot of interest in Lonzo Ball at that price. That's 400. Ever since Bledsoe came to town, I feel like his usage has gone down significantly. He's still putting up a ton of shots, but he's been fairly consistent this season. He's had very fluctuating type of fantasy games where he's put up 43 fantasy points and then the next night put up 7 fantasy points. So he's a guy that's hard to trust unless you want to look at some GPP spots. But again, with his price tag and the game total as it is at this point, I don't have a lot of interest. Eric Bledsoe is a name that I like. I've been hammering home Eric Bledsoe. I think he's getting more and more comfortable in this type of offense. He's coming off a game where he was relatively low usage, but he's a guy that can put up assists. He can get steals in bunches. And at that price tag, he's certainly going to be one of my favorite mid-tier plays in this game. And that's pretty much it as far as the backcourt goes. What about you?
Yeah, look, I think we've covered the backcourt fairly nicely there. I think we're pretty much both on the same page. Moving over to, Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson, Steven Adams here. Ingram is always in play. He's just always in play. And, I think his lowest possible floor in this game is around 30 DK points. And I think he's got a ceiling here, a real ceiling. He could be pushing up anywhere between 50 to 55 DK points in this matchup. I don't see who stops him. He's going to get his shots up. And, look, he just finds so many other ways to contribute, even if he's not scoring the ball. He definitely has a very solid floor. And Zion, for me, at 7,900, that is right in play here as well against the Hornets front court. Not much else I have to say. Adams is only a cash play. What do you think of these three guys?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think absolutely Brandon Ingram, 8,500. If we have to go between Hayward or Ingram, I think I'm going to go with Brandon Ingram for sure. He's a guy that has enormous upside. And to your point, there's no one that can really stop him on the Hornets side. So I really like him. Zion Williamson has been playing fairly well. 700 is certainly a price tag that we can ingest. He's been putting up 43 fantasy points over his last 2 games. I think he can continue to really feast down low. So he's another guy that's going to be absolutely in play for me. And you touched on a little bit, Steven Adams, a guy coming off a absolutely rare triple-double. I don't think we've ever seen a triple-double. I think, it's an absolute, it's a career first for him, something that no one can expect. So at 6,300, if he can put up a triple-double, which I wouldn't count on, he's going to be absolutely a smash spot, but I don't see that happening no matter the matchup. So he's going to be more of a tournament play for me.
Okay, fair enough. The only other name to throw in here is Nicole Alexander-Walker if JJ Redick sits again. Very low salary, 3,300. Definitely a guy you can punt on if JJ is not playing. Cool. Let's move across to the next one, Dave. OKC Thunder versus New York Knickerbockers, 7:30 p.m. again. Let's grab the line here as it refreshes in front of me. Thanks for that. We have very low total, 209.5 game total, and New York favoured by 3.5. New York favoured, isn't that weird to say? That's cool. Let's go back to the questionables and the injury report. OKC questionable, nobody at the moment, but out Trevor Ariza, who probably just won't play for this team, Ty Jerome and Pokachevsky. Little consequence, those two guys. New York, we have questionable Reggie Bullock, Kevin Knox, and Nerlens Noel. Out Alec Burks. Alec Burks, I need you back for my season-long fantasy leagues, please, very soon. Frank Ntilikina is also out, and Obi Toppin hasn't played since that first game. So very slow pace here. Game total is nice and tight, though, so straight over to you, Mr. Menkov. Let's slide into the Thunder backcourt.
Yeah, if we're talking about Thunder, you have to start your lineups always and often. Try go just Alexander, 7,800. That price tag has been fairly consistent, surprisingly, throughout the season. He hasn't had a ton of games where he's really shot out of the gates, but he's coming off his best game of the season, where he put up almost 51 fantasy points, 21 points, 9 assists, and 5 steals. And he's a guy that can absolutely explode for those type of numbers, even against the Knicks defense. So I like him a lot. I think he's one of my favorite plays in this entire game. So I like him a lot, and from that standpoint. And then the other guy I'm kind of having some shares in as well is George Hill at 4,800. Going to be more of a GVP type of play. just because he doesn't really have that kind of potential as far as a high fantasy point potential. But I'll have a little bit of interest in George Hill. But in terms of the lion's share, I'm going to be looking at Shai Gilgeous for sure. He's going to be my absolute go-to in this backcourt. What about you in the backcourt?
Yeah, couldn't agree more. George Hill's fantasy returns, they've just bounced all over the place in this starting lineup. He's only a GPP guy for me, last guy in, and hope he has a good one at 4,800. SGA. Look, this is a toughish matchup against the Knicks, and who knew I'd be saying that at the start of the season. He's priced up, back up at 7,800. Look, it takes a little bit of the value away. I may just leave him in favour of some other guys in this price range that I've kind of said this a couple of times, but we'll get to those. Look, for me, we'll switch across to the front court. You can attack the Knicks at centre. Mitchell Robinson's defence isn't that fantastic. So Al Horford at 5,400. Look, I probably think this is just a cash play. He doesn't have a lot of upside. He can get threes off in bunches, and he's probably going to stretch Mitch Rob to the 3-point line a fair bit. But the floor has been rock solid at 25 to 30 DK points outside of basically one bad game against Miami recently, and that's Miami. I don't mind Al Horford as a bit of a cash kind of play at 5,400. The guy that only other guy I might look at here is Darius Baisley, 6,200. He's showing some good upside, and he's going up against Julius Randle, who's not exactly known for his defensive prowess, although the Knicks have been solid pretty much across the floor. I just like the floor for Baisley here at 6,200, and I can see myself taking some of him. Front court for you?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in Darius Baisley. I drafted him in as many lineups as possible. I love him this season.
I have him in every single fantasy league. Every one of them.
Yes, you do.
Yes, I do.
You did snipe him from me, I believe, but that's besides the point. So getting into Darius Baisley, he's absolutely going to be in play for me as well. His price has only gone up by $400 on DK, so he's going to be firmly in play as one of my favorite mid-tier value plays on this probably entire slate. He's my favorite play of this matchup on both sides of the ball. So he's definitely the only place I'm going on the Thunder side as far as the front court goes. But otherwise, I'm staying away from everyone else on the Thunder front courts. Apologies.
Cool. Let's slide across to the Knicks then. Look, the Thunder are ranked about fifth from the bottom, fifth hardest for opposing teams to get fantasy points against. So keep that in mind. They still do have a few fantasy points. They still give up a few fantasy points at a couple of spots. So look, let's dive into the Knicks, mate. Do you have much interest in these guys?
Yeah, I have some interest. There's definitely going to be guys that their price tag is going to start. I can't speak this evening. Apologies, everyone who's listening. I'm really a big fan of Alfred Payton's game. He's getting plenty of opportunity to play. He's 6,500. That price tag is getting a little bit tricky in terms of his overall value. But he's coming off a rock solid game where he had 38 fantasy points. He's a guy that's getting plenty of minutes. He had 42 minutes in the last one. I don't see that stopping anytime soon. He's kind of taken and run with the point guard position in New York, and they're playing great basketball, so no reason to change anything. So I like Alfred Payton, 6,500. Julius Randle is going to be difficult to get into lineups, but he's been absolutely balling. Another guy that's been absolutely playing outrageous basketball, averaging almost 51 fantasy points this season. That price tag is extremely high, so it's going to deter a lot of people, but he's been putting up absolutely monstrous lines one after another. So he's going to be in play for me. But I would say he's going to be more – I'm going to have less shares of him. And then another guy I kind of want to touch on is Austin Rivers. He's been showing a lot of ability, renewed energy, coming off a game where he had 35 fantasy points. Salary is bumped up to 4,300, so it's going to be a little bit hard for me to play him in lineups, but a guy to definitely keep an eye on in case Payton is limited in any way. Austin Rivers is can absolutely smash at that price tag potentially. What about you?
Yeah, I love the Austin Rivers call. We have to pay attention to this in regards to Alfred Payton, because Austin Rivers is now coming off back-to-back 30-plus minute games. Rivers torched the Jazz for 35 DK points. But the other side of this is just keeping an eye out for Alec Burks' news as well, because rocking Rivers in your lineups when Burks comes back may not be the best play. But look, I'm starting to just feel like maybe the Knicks are going to push Austin Rivers closer to starters minutes, and maybe Alfred Payton fades a little bit. So that's where I'm looking at this one. Randall, you can't count him out this season. Just monstrous numbers, as you said, but 9,800, that's getting really, really high. Look, he's probably going to be too big for Darius Baisley down low. It's just not really Randall's game, I guess. And look, we did just see Zion take Baisley out to dinner for the tune of 40-plus DK points. I don't know. The salary, it's just the salary scaring me off a bit. If you had told me at the start of the season we'd be paying close to 10K for Julius Randle, I would have probably had milk coming out of my nose. But look, the only other play here is me, maybe just not my favourite player of the slate or anything, but just a bit of a salary saver. We can look at Mitch Robb here versus Horford. 5,700 is a decent salary for a guy with 40-point upside. I'd like to see more of that upside before I go thrashing him into lineups, but just a little solid value play. All right, before we move on to the next one, guys, I just want to have a quick chat to you guys. The support for DFS today is brought to you by Manscaped, who is one of the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Big news. Manscaped just released a new cologne scent to help you feel good and smell good all over and at all times. Everyone knows Manscaped has the perfect package 3.0 for all of your below-the-waist grooming needs, but they didn't stop there. Complete your grooming game with the new refined cologne signature scent by Manscaped. With the same signature scent that's in all the Manscaped formulas, this cologne is a perfect complement to the collection. It's light, approachable, and gentlemanly in all the right ways. It's calming and inviting. This signature scent introduces a light citrus burst before settling into the anchoring notes of vetiver. And I did look this up. It's a plant. I had no idea what that was last time I did the read. It is a plant. And this cologne also has a woodsy masculine finish. This beautifully designed 50ml glass bottle makes a statement, and the manly scent is attractive to set the mood. So now you can use the new Manscaped Refined Cologne to complete your set and smell great anytime, anywhere. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code HoopBall20. That's HOOPBALL20. It's time to feel sexy at manscaped.com. Okay, let's move across here to the next one, Dave. We have the Orlando Magic and the Houston Rockets. High game total here, 230.5 game total, with Houston favoured by 5 points. So nice, close, high game total. This should be interesting. Questionable list. We have questionable for Orlando, Evan Fournier, and out for Orlando we have Michael Carter-Williams, Alfred Payton, of course, John Isaac, Chuma Okeke, and the terrible news that I happened to be watching live. It did not look good. I knew he was in trouble straight away, and that is Markelle Fultz, now gone for the season with a torn ACL, which is just terrible news. I like watching this kid play. He's had to deal with a lot of adversity as it is, and now he's got this in front of him. So good luck to the young man. On the Houston side of the ball, questionable Christian Wood, which is news we definitely have to pay attention to. Ben McLemore is also still questionable. Mason Jones and young KJ Martin Jr. Out we have Chris Clemens of no consequence. Daniel House Jr. is out as well for Houston. So take it away here, Dave. That's a nice high game total. Who do you have here for Houston? Sorry, for Orlando. Go Orlando.
All right. Yeah, we'll jump into Orlando. As you touched on, so sad about Markelle Fultz. Just quickly wanted to send well wishes out there, Markelle Fultz, if he's listening. Let's hope he is, right? Absolutely on the Orlando side, it's hard to have a lot of faith in a lot of these guys, unfortunately. Cole Anthony is going to get heavy minutes, but I don't see him as a potential a savior and from a DFS perspective, and he's priced up at 5,000. So I'm not going to have a lot of shares in him. The only guys I'm really looking at on the Orlando side is probably Terence Ross. he's being priced up at 6,100. So that price tag is getting a little bit tricky, but he's certainly going to get a lot more usage, and I like him quite a bit. So he's definitely going to be in a lot of my lineups as like a nice pivot mid-tier play. So I like Terence Ross. And then also in the front court, it can't go wrong with Aaron Gordon, 6,600. His usage is also going to go up with the injury to Markelle Fultz. He might even start getting some more assists. He's certainly shown the capable of doing that in his previous life. So I like Aaron Gordon a lot. At 6,600, he's going to be probably one of my favorite plays on this team, especially against the Rockets defense. And then, as far as down low, Nick Vucevic, always rock steady. He's a guy that hasn't hit 9,000 in price tag since the season started, pretty much. So he's not going to be a guy that is going to be too heavily owned. But he's a guy that can absolutely go off too, and he might get more usage with Fultz injured. So I think all three are going to be in play. But in terms of my favorite plays on the Magic side, I'll have to side with Aaron Gordon in this type of game. What about you?
Welcome to Virtual Meditation with Shiloh.
Hello?
Today we're working on forgiving ourselves for not knowing the difference between upload and download speeds before getting cable internet.
That's oddly specific.
Repeat after me. I am not my cable internet.
Wait, I don't have cable.
I'm not a bad... It's my video calls, more like video stalls.
Hey, Shiloh, there's something...
I will get AT&T fiber.
And I will switch classes until you do.
Slow upload speeds? You're not a bad person. You just need better internet. With 20 times faster upload speeds, AT&T Fiber delivers a faster internet experience than cable. Get AT&T Fiber with no annual contract, limited availability in select areas. Call 1-877-ONLY-ATT. Check eligibility at att.com/getfiber based on combined internet 1,000 wired up and download capacity versus major cable providers 1 gig service with uploads of 35 megabits per second. Speeds vary, not guaranteed. Restrictions apply.
This year has reminded us of the importance of saving for the unexpected. And as a bank, our job is to make that a little easier for everyone. That's why at Huntington, we're so proud to introduce Money Scout. It analyzes your checking account to find money that's not being used and moves it to your savings automatically. It's that simple, so you can always be saving, even now. Learn more and enroll at huntington.com/moneyscout. Huntington. Welcome. Money Scout is subject to eligibility, terms and conditions, and other account agreements. Member FDIC.
Love it, man. Love it, love it. I am thinking usage here rather than the plug-and-play automatic starter in Cole Anthony. I am low on Anthony for fantasy returns. 5K on DK, I am worried about that price. Even with starters minutes, I will be looking at where the usage goes, and your first player named there is the one for me. It's Terence Ross. At 6,100, he's getting to that value off the bench in his 28 to 30 minutes a night anyway. There's a chance that the minutes creep up a little more here, especially if Cole Anthony has an off night as a rookie. Terence Ross is the guy. He could come in here and just smash minutes out, and we know how well he scores the ball and scores for fantasy. So love the Ross call. Aaron Gordon is the other guy for me, 6,600. I've been playing a lot of Aaron Gordon. I will be playing more Aaron Gordon now with the unfortunate injury to Fultz. I just think 6,600, while the price is starting to get a little high, he's looking a whole lot better this season. I had very little to do with Gordon last year, but he's starting to look like the potential player that we thought we might see. So love it. Nick Vooch, 9K is getting up there, but look, I think for me this probably depends on the Christian Wood availability. If Christian Wood is in, I may not play Vucevic at that price. If he's out, I may be all over him at 9K. Houston side of the ball, James Harden, always the monster in the room that we have to talk about. 11K is a steep price. Are you playing him?
I am not. Just given his recent play, he just doesn't seem very interested in playing. It just appears that he's just not showing any motivation as far as I've seen, and especially playing alongside John Wall. He's a guy that priced $8,000, only a $3,000 price cut from James Harden. I'll absolutely have more interest in playing a guy like John Wall than I would. It's crazy to even say at this point. This is how wacky and wild this past year has been, that I'm considering John Wall in 2021 over James Harden. It's outrageous for me to even say out loud. So I feel like I'm going absolutely in circles just thinking about that.
No, man,
So,
I'm with you. Continue on, but I'm with you on that. I'm not playing hard, and I'll be looking at Wall. Go, keep going, man.
Absolutely. So Eric Gordon, 5,700, another guy that I'll be looking at. He's been shooting lights out recently. 5,700 is absolutely going to be in play for me in this type of matchup, in this type of high-scoring potential matchup. So he's going to be one of my guys I'm looking at. And then the other guys I'm really going to be looking at is to see if Christian Wood plays. If Christian Wood plays, he's going to be a guy that can absolutely put up 40, 50 points, no problem from a fantasy perspective. But I'm a little worried about him playing in this setting. If he does sit, DeMarcus Cousins priced up a little bit these days at 5,100. If he gets 20, 25 minutes like he did in the last one, he should absolutely smash at that price tag. So that's going to be something to monitor as we get closer to tip. That's about it for me on the Rockets side. What about you?
Boom! I don't think I have to say anything else, man. You pretty much covered everything I was thinking right down to the T. So, yeah, Wood out, Cousins in. The other guys you mentioned, Harden looks disinterested. 11K is too much right now. If he burns me, fine. But, yeah, I'm not playing that. Paying that much for him at the moment. John Wall looks great, 8K. Love that price for him. And yeah, Christian Wood, if he plays, 7,900. We've all seen what he's capable of. The matchup is a little bit tough against Vooch, but I think there's a very solid floor there for Christian Wood. So yeah, love it, dude. I think you pretty much took the words out of my mouth on that one, and we can slide across to the next game, which is Brooklyn versus Memphis. We'll grab the over-under here. Oh, it's gone. Hey, cool. Let's move on without that. Oh, no, hang on. Here it is. Sorry, guys. We are looking at... Okay, so there is no game total listed for this one at this time. Brooklyn favoured by 4.5 points. Probably expect this to be fairly pace-up kind of game. Brooklyn tend to play pretty fast, and we obviously have some injury news that we have to look at. Kyrie Irving on DraftKings listed as out here. We know Kevin Durant is out. I didn't know that Irving was, but we'll have to keep an eye on that. Who else we got here? Tyler Johnson is out. Spencer Dinwiddie is obviously out. Nick Claxton is still out. And someone called Reggie Perry is also out. No one questionable on the Brooklyn side of the ball. Memphis, Ja Morant is still out. Jaren Jackson Jr. is still out. John Concha is now out. I think he missed the last game as well. Justice Winslow is still out, and Killian Tilly and young Jonte Porter also still out. That is it. No questionables on this side of the ball. Okay, Nets Memphis. Not a lot of defense going on here, Dave. What do you think on the Brooklyn side of the ball?
Yeah, the Brooklyn side of the ball is going to be interesting. With Kyrie Irving, with this phantom new injury or COVID-related, no one really knows what's going on with Kyrie Irving. With his status in jeopardy, if he plays 9,900, he's going to be absolutely in play as one of the more expensive guards in this entire slate. However, if he does sit, it's again, Karis LeVert night all over again. And he's priced up a little bit at 7,400 from tonight, and he absolutely smashed against the Sixers, and I fully expect him to do something similar if he does get all that run. He put up 50 fantasy points tonight, and I fully expect that to be duplicated if Kyrie Irving sits, especially against the Grizzlies. So he's probably one of my favorite plays on the Nets side. There's no one else I'm really trusting. Bruce Brown is priced up to 4,000. He's a guy that it's hard to trust when it comes to DFS and in terms of that perspective. Jared Allen's pricing has really shot up in recent games, 6,800. He's getting to that point where it's going to be very hard to play him. So really, for me, it's going to come down to if Kyrie plays. If Kyrie plays, he's in play. If Kyrie sits, Karis LeVert is an absolute lock for me. That's it. That's all. Good night on the Nets side. What about you?
Yeah, look, pretty much the same thinking. I don't know about you, but I got burnt with Bruce Brown in a stack of my lineups tonight. I got sucked into the trap of the new starter. We know Bruce Brown can be pretty good, but yeah, I think he ended up with less than 10 DK points in a matchup tonight. So burnt pretty bad. I'm going to just stick with you, Karis LeVert, not much else. Jarrett Allen for me is a pretty good price, still at 6,800. If he's going to continue starting and if we see DeAndre Jordan's minutes just all the way down at 9 or something as it was in the last game. Jarrett Allen is going to be in play every day for me at that price, but there's nothing else I'm really interested in here for Brooklyn. So let's swing over to Memphis, mate. The Grizzlies, there's still the obvious outs, and John Conchar is now out. What do you think here against the Brooklyn Nets?
Yeah, on the Grizzlies side, it's going to be interesting. Just watching the Grizzlies play, there's a bunch of value up and down the board. I think DeAnthony Melton is going to be absolutely in play again. He's a guy that's getting more and more minutes every night. Ever since he got back into the rotation, he's a guy that's putting up pretty nice lines. In his last 2 outings, he's coming off a game tonight where he did put up 22, almost 23 fantasy points. And he's a guy that can, again, get steals, blocks, and provide all that value in limited playing time. So I like him quite a bit from that perspective. So he's probably my favorite play on the Grizzlies side. And then I'm also going to have some interest potentially in Dillon Brooks, although it's hard to trust Dillon Brooks. 6,500, that price tag is a bit high, especially against the Nets. So I would say for me, it's mostly going to be DeAnthony Melton. And that's pretty much it on the Grizzlies side for me, especially after a back and forth game tonight against the Cavaliers. I don't think they're going to have a ton left from an energy perspective going into tomorrow night. What about you?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We do have a back-to-back here. We have to watch that. Jonas Valanciunas has been a staple for me to go to for the Memphis team, and against the Brooklyn center defense, that doesn't scare me at all, although, it is Jarrett Allen out there now. I just think Valanciunas plays a different game to what Allen is kind of stylized to defend. So I don't mind JV at 7,200. He's always got the most solid floor out there. If we could just possibly get some more minutes into this dude, he could beat 40 DK points every single night. I'm with you. I don't play Dillon Brooks. If his shot is off, you are basically screwed. I'd like your DeAnthony Melton call. I think this guy's going to end up starting over Tyus Jones. I think he's a better player than Tyus Jones, and we're seeing the minutes come in now that he's back from the injury or COVID related. I can't remember, to be honest, but I will take Melton at 3,400 over Tyus Jones at 5,900 every day of the week. I've been playing a lot of Kyle Anderson. I think he may have let me down tonight, but look, I don't mind this matchup for Kyle Anderson, 6,500. Dude's been playing pretty well. Pretty solid floor most of the time, I believe. And look, he's had a couple of 20 DK points in the 20s. He does have a decent ceiling when he gets going, though. So, look, those low DK points for Kyle Anderson, they were against the Lakers twice. And against Boston. For Charlotte, he went 47 DK points. So, look, I don't mind this matchup here for him in a bit of a bounce back. That is probably it for me for Memphis. No one else that you wanted to mention there, mate?
No, I think we covered everyone.
Cool. We'll swing it across. Utah, Milwaukee. I've got a feeling that has blowout written all over it. Let's see what Vegas thinks. Milwaukee favored by only 8. I'm a little surprised about that. I'm also surprised about this game total of 236.5. That seems a little high in a game that has Utah in it, but we'll see how it goes. Let's start with the Jazz, Dave. Who do you have here?
Yeah, on the Jazz side, it's going to be interesting. I mean, this team is really hard to figure out from a DFS perspective, night to night. You never know what you're going to get. They've really shown they've come out flat in so many games this season that it's hard to really trust them. So Donovan Mitchell, 7,600, is not going to have a lot of interest from me. He hasn't really shown much this season. He's been kind of off overall, so I don't like him from a DFS perspective that much. The only guy I'm actually looking at on the Jazz side, surprisingly, is Joe Ingles at 4,800 coming off the bench. If this game ends up being a blowout, which I fully expected will, he's going to get plenty of opportunity. So he's a guy that I'm going to be absolutely having interest in. And then the only other guy I'm really looking at, again, going with that same theme of a blowout potential, Jordan Clarkson, 5,100 coming off a 29-point game, 29-point effort against the Knicks He's a guy that can absolutely get going very quickly, and he should get plenty of minutes in a potential blowout situation. So those are probably my two only plays on the Jazz side. What about you?
Okay, yeah, look, I will definitely be having a look at Jordan Clarkson. I would probably rather him over Joe Ingles, to be honest. 5,100 for Clarkson versus 4,800. Yes, there's a little salary saving. I just like Clarkson's upside and floor a little more. I think Joe Ingles' floor may fall away from game to game, but that's cool. Nice, just a little pivot play maybe against each other. Mike Conley, yeah, 6,400. This is a tough matchup for anybody on the Jazz, so I'll probably just steer clear. Donovan Mitchell hasn't hit his straps yet. He's going to explode one of these games, about 7,600. I think that's just too high. Rudy Gobert is probably one of my targets on this Utah side of the ball, just going up against Brook Lopez, who's a good shot blocker, but not an overall good defender. You can usually target Milwaukee at the center spot, but honestly, this is going to be a tough matchup for the Utah, so I'll probably just fade most of these guys. We can switch over to the Milwaukee side of the ball. Dave, Giannis, 10-9, Harden, 11. These prices are high. Can you play Giannis on a night against Utah?
Yeah, it's hard, to be honest with you. He's a guy that, there's certainly opportunity for him to get heavy minutes, and if he does, he has absolute potential to blow past that price tag at 10-9. I like him over Harden if we're going to be splitting hairs in terms of pricing, but overall, I don't like him at all in this matchup. I don't foresee a situation where he plays more than 25, 30 minutes at best. He can certainly put up monster lines in a short amount of time, and he's proven that. He's put up 65 fantasy points a few nights ago on New Year's Day against the Bulls. But again, I don't foresee that situation potentially happening here, so I'm not going to have that many shares. He's always going to be in play, and like I said, I like him over Harden. The only other guy I'm really looking at is really, Chris Middleton is another guy that we can really look at 8,000. He's certainly quite a price savings from Giannis. He's coming off a great game where he put up 41 fantasy points. He's going to be a guy that, again, in blowout potential, he might get extra opportunity. So that's the only reason why I kind of prefer him and save that $3,000 and spend elsewhere versus Giannis. And then the other guys I'm looking at, Dante DiVincenzo, 5,000. That price tag is a little high for my taste. So I'm not going to have too much interest in Dante, but he's another guy that can get some heavy run in a blowout scenario. But that's pretty much it for me on the Bucks side. Despite a high game total, I don't see too much. What about you?
Look, I'm pretty much steering clear of this game on the whole. DiVincenzo, yes, he could definitely get some extra run if this is a blowout. I think it will be a blowout. Utah haven't been playing particularly well. So DiVincenzo is one to look at. I've actually been playing a lot of Bobby Portis, which I hate saying out loud because I don't like the bloke. But, 5,300 for Bobby Portis. Let's have a look here. He's been putting up DK points anywhere between 20 to 40. So, a little bit all over the place. I like him in blowouts, though, and I just have a feeling that there's blowout written all over this one. He'll get extra minutes if that's the case, so I don't mind him at 5,300 as a little bit of a value play. Won't be playing Giannis at 10-9, as you said. Look, the only chance that I'd play Giannis is if you think this is going to stay close. I don't think it stays close, so that might be the wrong call. Fine, but 10-9 is too much to spend, and I would much rather pay for Middleton at 8K, like you have said. That one is done and dusted. Let's move on to the next one, Dave. It is the Los Angeles Clippers and the Golden State Warriors. This is worrying as well. Let's see what Vegas thinks. So, a high game total, 232.5 game total. Clippers only favoured by 4. I'm surprised at that, especially when you hear the list of potential outs for the Golden State Warriors or questionables. Let's start with the Clippers, though. They have nobody. Questionable. Jay Scrubb is still out. We cannot play Jay Scrubb again. This is doing my head in. I need to play me some Jay Scrubb. Golden State Warriors, questionable. Sit down for this, people. Steph Curry is questionable. Andrew Wiggins is questionable. Kelly Oubre Jr., questionable. Draymond Green, questionable. Marquise Chris, out. Klay Thompson, obviously, out. This is a worry. I'm not sure why all of these questionables are up here. Perhaps they're just looking at a night off against a really solid team. That could be the case. LA Clippers, Dave, what do you have for me?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting on the Clippers side. I mean, with all these guys playing, it's hard to really to trust anyone, even this type of matchup. Paul George is going to be in play for me, 9,100. Guy that's always putting up pretty impressive fantasy numbers. So he's a guy that's really turned the corner this season again after that poor performance in the playoffs. He's a guy that, the price tag is getting up there. It's the first time he's exceeded that 9,000 salary. So he's a guy that absolutely is going to be in play, coming off a slightly poor game against this very same team where he only had 42 fantasy points. But he's a guy that can absolutely put up 50 fantasy points, and a 9,100 price tag going to be in play, especially if this game ends up being close. I think it's all going to come down to whether Curry plays or not, but we'll get to that. And on the Clippers side of the ball, Kawhi Leonard is also going to be in play for me as well. He's a guy that's always going to be putting up some great numbers. He's been fluctuating, good performance, bad performance, good performance, bad performance over his last four. So if that trend continues, he's coming off a 32-point fantasy game, he should be able to put up another 60-point burger on the Warriors. So using that absolute scientific methodology,
love that.
Kawhi Leonard is going to be in play, and then Nick Batum. Again, another name that I never thought I would be playing in lineups at all come 2021, but here we are talking about Nicholas Batum, 5,100. He's been putting up some great fantasy lines recently, showing a lot of confidence, shooting the ball well. Priced at 5,100, so certainly going to be in play for me. That's pretty much it on the Clippers side. What about you?
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same as you, mate. Kawhi Leonard, Paul George. I will take Paul George at the $200 discount over Kawhi. But as you just mentioned, he's doing this domino flip-flop effect, so we can expect 75 DK points from Kawhi tonight. That's fantastic to know. But yeah, look, in all seriousness, I'm probably playing Paul George a little bit more than I'm playing Kawhi. Paul George will be facing... I've forgotten his name. Help me out. Shooting guard, Warriors. Wiggins? No. Dave, help me out.
Yes. It's
D'Angelo Russell.
No, it's Andrew Wiggins. Yeah,
it's Andrew Wiggins. It's one of those two. I get those two mixed up all the time.
On the Wolves. Yep.
Oh man, the similar players. Sorry about that, everybody. Yes, it is Wiggins. I will play Paul George facing Andrew Wiggins' defense every day of the week. I don't really want much to do with Serge Ibaka. Not with Draymond now out there. If he's out, yeah. Sure, maybe a little bit of a Ibaka at 5,700, but there's not a great deal of upside there. Nick Batum, I have been playing Nick Batum. Just keep an eye on Morris coming back into this lineup in the last one. There may be a minutes battle there, so just be careful. Apart from that, it's from me, it's really a little bit of Leonard, a bit of PG-13, and maybe some shares in Nick Batum, but that's probably about it. Golden State, questionable. Let's see what happens here. What do you think we might see from the Golden State Warriors tonight?
Yeah, the Golden State is going to be interesting for sure. I like Steph Curry. He's a guy obviously coming off a slight ankle tweak, but Steve Kerr confirmed that it's nothing serious. So I'm sticking with that assumption that he does play. If he does play, he should be able to absolutely come back and smash. That price tag is high at 10,000. Coming off an absolute dud of a game after that monster effort earlier this week. But I like Steph Curry. Again, he's going to be a potential pivot play from some of the other guys on the slate that are priced up. But, I don't know if I'll have too many shares of Steph Curry just because of the risk of injury re-aggravation, especially with an ankle. That's going to be the slight concern for me. That's pretty much it in the backcourt. I don't have a lot of interest in Andrew Wiggins, as you touched on, a.k.a. D'Angelo Russell.
Hi.
And then in the power forward position, I really like Draymond Green, actually, in the power forward center slot. He's a guy that's ramping up his minutes, coming off a 31-minute effort, apologies. where he put up 23 fantasy points. He's still not really putting up too many shots, but he's a well-rounded fantasy performer as he's proven throughout his career. So at that price tag, I don't know how much more of a floor we're going to get Draymond Green. So I think as he gets more and more comfortable, he's a guy that can absolutely smash that price tag potentially if this game ends up staying close and Steph Curry isn't hobbled. Draymond Green is probably one of my favorite plays on the Warriors side. What about you?
Okay, man. Yeah, cool. Look, I'm probably only looking at a couple of guys here. I'm not playing Wiggins. In fact, I rarely play Wiggins even at 6,600. Kelly Oubre Jr., really like this guy as a player. I think he has a lot of potential. Not sure that potential is there when he's most likely facing Kawhi defense, so I'll pass there. Steph Curry, absolutely. 10K is a steep price, but as we saw in the 2 games before his last little shocker, 75 DK points and 54 or something in the other one. So, yep, nice bounce back slot here for Steph Curry, and the Clippers are not too much of a worry defending fantasy points at the point guard position. I will just throw Eric Pascal in here, Pascal, and I'm never sure which way to say that. 4,400. Now that Draymond is back, he is coming off the bench and he seems to be liking that. I like it for him too. He's not up against, these big name power forwards out there that are stifling other guys. So him coming off the bench, Pascal at 4,400, I like him. His last 2 fantasy returns in that role, 24 DK points and 29 DK points. So that is value all the way to the bank. Cool. I think that covers us for the Clippers Golden State game. Let's move across to Chicago Lakers. And we check the Vegas odds here. There are none, so let's skip that and just move into the injury report. So, questionable for Chicago, 0 people questionable. We still have Lauri Markkanen out. Thomas Satoransky is still out. Ryan, is it Ryan? Yes, Ryan Archer-Jackson. Okay, that guy's out, and Chandler Hutchison is still out. I practiced that about 5 times before we went to air, Dave, and I still butchered it. So shout out to Santino, my good buddy over there. Let's get stuck in here. Oh, sorry, the other side of the ball. LA Lakers, questionable. Surprise, surprise. LeBron is questionable. Surprise, surprise. AD is questionable. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, also questionable for the Lakers, and that looks like it for the injury report there. Let's jump into Chicago. Lakers defense, Bulls, can we play them? What do you think?
Yeah, against the Lakers, certainly going to be in play. The Lakers are playing a late-night game tonight, so that's something to keep in mind going into this matchup. So they might be a little bit tired. Again, that's not something that can necessarily translate from a DFS perspective, but something to monitor nonetheless. So on the Bulls side, I like Kobe White, a guy that's been underachieving for the most part this season, coming off an absolute monster game where he had 52 fantasy points, no turnovers, which is impressive to say, considering he was averaging it felt like 15,000 a game. In reality, he was averaging around 3 turnovers a game. But a guy that absolutely has been playing better as of late. And I think he can be a guy that could potentially pose problems for the Lakers if this game stays relatively close. I don't expect it to if the Lakers all are at full strength. So Kobe White's, I'm going to have some interest in him. Zach LaVine, his running mate in the shooting guard position, certainly going to be in play, 8,600. I'm not going to have too much interest in Zach LaVine just because of this matchup. But he's probably going to be a nice pivot at that price tag to someone else on the slate that's similarly priced. A guy like Paul George, I think I kind of like Zach LaVine a little bit better from the shooting guard position, and it's a price savings of $500 to boot. So I like those two. That's pretty much it. I might actually have a little bit of interest in Wendell Carter at 5,800, just coming off a career high rebounding game where he had 17 rebounds. So he's certainly going to be a guy that might be able to get to 35, 40 fantasy points if he gets that opportunity. I just don't see it happening against Anthony Davis. So that's pretty much it on the Bulls side. What about you?
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I honestly, I don't want too much to do with Wendell Carter Jr. here. The Lakers are rock bottom, the hardest team for centers to score fantasy points across this season. So I'll just give that a bit of a pass tonight. I think I'm with you. I don't mind playing Zach LaVine on the odd night. I just think Kobe White's in a better spot here up against the Lakers backcourt. So 7,300, that's a $1,300 saving away from Zach LaVine. I'll play Kobe White in more shares than I'll have LaVine. I'm not really interested in anyone else on this Bulls lineup, to be honest. That maybe do it for me, and we can probably just flick it straight across to the LA Lakers. Questionable tags on James and Davis. What do you think may happen here?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think one of them does sit. I mean, you can mark it. You can save that quote from me, but I think one of them does sit in this matchup, especially going against the Bulls. I think they'll give them an opportunity to rest one of their players, and if that's the case, fire up some Kyle Kuzma, 5,500, a guy that's going to be absolutely in play for me. He should get the starting nod. A guy that has shown when he starts, he certainly has the upside to really exceed that number and that salary. In earlier games, when he did start, he did put up 35, almost 36 fantasy points. He hasn't been doing that recently, but a guy that can absolutely smash that potentially in this type of matchup, blowout potential especially. Even if Anthony Davis or LeBron James sits, I still don't see it being particularly close. With that said, the only other guy I'm really looking at on the Lakers side would have to be Dennis Schroeder. 6,200 is a fairly interesting price tag. Again, a guy that started off guns blazing to start the season, and a guy that has cooled off quite a bit in recent games, but certainly going to get opportunity to play. And if LeBron James does sit, he's going to have more playmaking abilities. So you have to factor that into your DFS decision making as well. And that's pretty much it. Montrezl Harrell at 6,100, going to be somewhat in play for me as well. Again, depending on who sits, who ends up sitting on the Lakers. If Anthony Davis and LeBron James somehow both sit, then he's an absolute smash position at 6,100. I expect him to absolutely crush that value and that price tag. What about you, good sir?
Good, sir. I love it. Perfect. Yeah, I think it's probably the same for me. LeBron James at 10-3, if he plays, always a chance to get there. Anthony Davis, same thing. I would probably just take maybe LeBron over AD there, even at $200 more if both of these guys play. Honestly, against Chicago, if one of these guys sits, I'll probably play the other one no matter who it is, and just eat up that high salary and have quite a few shares of them against Chicago. As you said, Kyle Kuzma is the automatic plug and play if AD or LeBron sit, and if both of them sit, then absolutely we can fire up Montrezl Harrell. The other thing, just keep it in the back of your mind still. Look, if both of these guys sit, 3,500 for Taylor Horton-Tucker. I know he hasn't been doing it well, but he had an opportunity last time both of these guys sits. He just didn't grab it with both hands. He had a decent amount of minutes out there, just couldn't get the fantasy points on the board. So, look, just keep his name in the back of your mind for a really bargain basement $3,500. All right, we have reached the last game. Good peoples, we are looking at Toronto and the Sacramento Kings. Vegas has this game at 226.5 over under, and Toronto favoured by 5 points. Only 5 points is surprising, to be honest, against Sacramento. Questionable and out. For Toronto, it's Patrick McCaw, and that looks, he is questionable, and that is of no consequence to us. And for Sacramento, we have questionable. Now, this is of consequence. De'Aaron Fox has come up on the questionable report. Rashaan Holmes is up on the questionable report, and Jabari Parker is also up on the questionable report. I think that's about it for Sacramento. We can dive into this last one. Toronto Raptors versus the Kings. Who do you have here, Dave?
Yeah, on the Raptors side, I think it comes down to some of the backcourt guys. Fred VanVleet, 8,100, going to be in play, especially against the Sacramento Kings. that might be without De'Aaron Fox in all likelihood. So he's probably going to be my favorite play on the Raptors side. I like him more than Kyle Lowry at 7,900 just because he has more of a ceiling type of game. He's been playing really well recently outside of his last game against the Phoenix Suns. So I like him. He's probably my favorite play in this backcourt, as I mentioned. Kyle Lowry, not as much interest in, to be honest with you. I know he's coming off a great game against the Phoenix Suns, but I prefer Fred VanVleet in this type of matchup. And then the only other guy I'm really looking at is probably going to be Chris Boucher at 5,000, a guy that his last game, he didn't really do much, only played 15 minutes. If he gets to 25 minutes against Sacramento Kings, he should absolutely smash that price tag. So he's going to be a guy that's going to be low owned, given this is the last game of the night, but absolutely going to be in play for me. And then Pascal Siakam, going to have some interest in him coming off his best game of the season, where he put up almost 52 fantasy points and priced up at 7,700. That's still leaving some meat on the bone against the Kings' porous defense. So I kind of like Pascal Siakam. So in terms of rankings on the Raptors side, I'm going to go most likely VanVleet number 1, and then number 2 Siakam, number 3 Chris Boucher. What about you?
Love it, man. You're thinking exactly the same way as me. When it's a toss-up between Kyle Lowry and Freddie VanVleet, I tend to play VanVleet, and as you mentioned, that is because of the ceiling. In the games before the last one, he was around the 55 DK point mark in both of them, I think. So love the ceiling for VanVleet. Love it against the Sacramento Kings as well. Got to have a few shares in Kyle Lowry. His floor is just so safe, but yeah, the ceiling is with FVV. So that's the way I would go there. Pascal Siakam, nice to see him finally put up some fantasy points for us. 7,700 is not a price tag that scares me for him against the Sacramento Kings. He is definitely worth having some shares of here. Chris Boucher, absolutely 5K. He is a fantasy points per minute monster. We all know this. 5K is not a cheap price for a guy who can score in excess of 1 fantasy point per minute. And just keep in mind that I believe that Nick Nurse said after the last one that he should have played Boucher more. So if we see more Boucher, play more Boucher. It's that simple. Yep, I'm kind of with you. That's probably it for me on Toronto. I don't play a lot of OG Anunoby, but yeah, he's not too bad value there at 5,800. Okay, Sacramento, last team of the night, peeps. Thanks for sticking with us. Yeah, De'Aaron Fox questionable, Rashaan Holmes questionable. That throws some question marks up in the air. What do you like on the Kings side of the ball?
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to some news on De'Aaron Fox. It's looking like it's going to come down to a game-time decision, which none of us in DFS want to hear, especially since it's the final game of this monster slate. So that's going to be definitely something to monitor as we go throughout the day, just to see where that shakes out. If he ends up playing, I like him in this matchup. 8,300 is certainly going to be in play. If he's a full go with his full allotment of minutes, he's going to be a great play, especially in the matchup against Fred VanVleet or Kyle Lowry. And then the only other guy I'm looking at really is Tyrese Halliburton as a pivot, 5,400. If we find out that Fox is out, quickly switch out for Halliburton. That rookie is looking absolutely impressive, more and more impressive every game. He's been absolutely killing it. Just like LaMelo Ball, that price tag is not going to last long if he starts getting absolutely more and more minutes. And the Iowa State product is looking every bit the lottery pick that he was. So I like him. And then as far as the big men go on the Kings side, it's going to be interesting because we have to make sure and double check, because Marvin Bagley had an out-of-body game in his last one where he put up 46 fantasy points. He burned me extremely burned me. I don't want to digress, but in fantasy, I dropped him right before this explosion. So I'm so happy that he decided to do that. So I'm just for spite alone, I would not be playing Marvin Bagley, but he's certainly going to be in play, especially in this matchup if he can match that kind of effort. And then the only other guy I'm looking at is Rashaan Holmes, who's got a questionable tag. If he ends up missing this one, obviously he's not going to be in the player pool, but if he does play, coming off a 43-point effort. I love Rashaan Holmes at that price, at 6,200. He's going to be in play for me. What about you?
Perfect, man. And I will still steer clear of Marvin Bagley III as well, just to back you up, to back my DFS today buddy up. I am not playing you, you rotten person, for burning Dave. No, I'm not looking at a lot of stuff here for the Kings. I don't play guards against the Raptors any night usually, unless it's someone who is completely matchup proof. I'll just leave De'Aaron Fox and Buddy Hield on the board here. Yeah, I won't play Bagley now because I'm feeling spiteful too. The only other guy, two guys for me, Tyrese Halliburton, absolutely. This guy's going to start ramping minutes up, whether he's starting or not. 5,400 is probably a little bit too cheap for a guy who just came off 44.25 DK points. Had a bit of a stinker in against Houston in the last one before that, but before that he went 32 and 26 DK points as well. So 5,400, that's a fair price tag for the rookie. And the only other guy I'd look at is Rashaan Holmes at 6,200. Just upside. That's just upside. He had an absolute shocker against Golden State. Only played 19 minutes, but in other games he's basically been around well over 30 minutes a game. So, yeah, points per minute guy, Rashaan Holmes at that price is okay with me. Cool, man. I think we've done it. I think we've done 10 games. Anything else you want to add before we go?
Absolutely not. I think we touched on everything. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, man, love it. Love doing these Friday slates with you. Thank you for joining me from New York City. And thank you to all of you guys out there joining us as well. Hey, go hit us up. Follow us, subscribe to us on all of your usual podcast platforms. Give us a little 5-star review there as well if you can. It literally takes you guys about 15 seconds. It means the world to us here at HoopBall. Thanks, guys, for listening in. We will take it out there. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
We will see you next time. Thanks, guys. HoopBall DFS today. We are out of here.
Cheerio.
This has been a HoopBall presentation.